Can I also welcome this debate, but can I agree with Pauline McNeill that it is a shame that it's been shoehorned into the end of the afternoon. As Annie Wells said, we'll be supporting the government's motion. You don't really need to say any more than the first few words of that motion, that no one should be marginalised or discriminated against because of their race or background. Calianna Lyle's Addressing Race Inequality in Scotland, The Way Forward is an important document. It's a useful and detailed outline of some of the key challenges. Can I also welcome the Race Equality Action Plan, in which the Cabinet Secretary states, quotes, "The reality is that in Scotland today, people from minority ethnic communities are twice as likely to be unemployed, run a higher risk of poverty, and are more likely to live in overcrowded homes." It's housing that I want to concentrate my remarks on today. First, some statistics taken from both reports. In Scotland, white, other British, Pakistani and white Scottish ethnic groups had the highest levels of home ownership, 70, 68 and 68% respectively in 2011. The African and white gypsy traveller groups had the highest proportions of people who lived in social rented accommodation, 41 and 40%. This was double the rate in the population as a whole. White Polish, Bangladeshi and African households had the highest rates of overcrowding. And Ms Lyle says that people from minority ethnic communities are disproportionately likely to live in the private rented sector, but that we know little as to why this is the case. And she recommends that research is done to explore the gap between what minority ethnic communities need, what they have and why. Accurate data is important, as our amendment points out. Ms Lyle also suggests that the Scottish Government should consider setting aside a proportion of the Affordable Housing Investment Fund to allow for the provision of larger properties for minority ethnic communities in those local authority areas which are failing to do this. Now, Ms Constance does not go quite as far as this in her own series of action points, and I think she's probably right in the tone she sets. We need to treat everybody in housing need fairly based on accurate data. Ms Lyle also addresses the crucial area of housing quality and focuses on the private rented sector. She says, "We have the legislation required to target housing quality improvement in those sectors where minority ethnic communities predominate. What is now needed is better enforcement of that legislation." And she calls for the Scottish Government to do an assessment of the enforcement of private rented sector regulations and report on the findings. As members across this chamber have said previously, housing conditions and maintenance is a huge issue. We should not limit our discussion on this to particular sections of society or indeed particular forms of tenure. The issue is massive and needs to be seen as such, although it's clearly a particular issue for certain sections of society. Deputy Presiding Officer, I said at the start I welcome the Race Equality Action Plan. However, like most government documents, it is heavy on waffle, particularly the housing section, and light on detail. But that aside, if we back this motion, then we can truly have a chance of achieving race equality.